Hi, Lisa Schermerhorn here with Michelle Lowry, and you are on our show, Intuitive Guidance from Animals. And we're very excited. We have two amazing people here to talk about their stories with their own animals. And if you have a story or a question about your pet, and it doesn't have to be a dog, it can be a cat, it can be a bird, it can be a horse, it could be a bug. She communicates with them all. If you have a question about an animal who's deceased or still alive, she does amazing readings. She's helped me so much. She's helped me guide me when my dog needed to pass, when I've had dogs that are very sick. She's an amazing woman, a friend of mine for 10 years. Can't believe it. And she has a background. She's a Reiki master, she's a shamanic practitioner, and amazing. And you're also, was it the Bowen method?
Yeah, Bowen therapy.
Bowen therapy, which
Yeah.
she's used on my senior dog. So we have someone who's really unique, and Patrick and I have been speaking. We have Patrick Baker here. The reason why we got him onto the show was because we were actually doing another show, and the topic of his dog came up. And this was almost like a part two of our last show that we did about, there she is, little lady. Um, Part two about vaccines and what happens with them in the veterinary world as well. So Michelle, I'd love for you to say what you would like to say about that, and then we could talk to Pat about his experience with Lil Lady.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Patrick and Tressa, for being here. So this is a really interesting topic that we're going to be talking about today, and one that is also very close to my heart, one that I've experienced myself, and one that I work with my clients when it comes to veterinary care, choices, decisions, diagnoses, prognoses, and how do we handle that? How do we handle it when fear is guiding us? How do we handle it when we just feel that the decision is not a good one or a right one, but we're being told it's the only one we have? How do we look at our animals and find out what they want? What is going to be best from their perspective? I've had animals that have told me they don't want surgery. I've had animals that have said, if I have surgery, watch the level of anesthesia. I've had animals that say, if I have to stay in the vet office, make sure I go in the back room where there isn't all the mayhem. And when we really start to introduce their voice into that process, we can get a much clearer picture. The other thing that is very close to my heart is educating people that they do have a voice, that it is your animal and you do have a choice. You can say no. If you're anything like me, there aren't many vets that will work with me because of my protocols and the way I believe I want to take care of my animals. But I have also found some amazing Western vets that work with me really, really well. So it's all about having conversations. It's all about being very transparent. And it's all about taking in the information that you're being given. And then, what we'll talk about is how to feel out intuitively what is a good or what is not maybe a good decision for your animal in that moment. And most of the time, if we get a feeling that we're not sure this is a good decision, I guarantee you that's your animal communicating with you that they're not liking what's being said, because they do know what's being said and there's a vibration to it. So it really is about learning how to communicate with them and trust that what you feel is accurate. So Patrick has just a very frustrating, sad, but educational story to share with us today that I'm hoping will really help people. And he has a website that also will take people to the information and his story. And I think it's a very important one. And I do believe a lot of people will resonate with everything that Patrick wants to share. and we'll talk about that. And then when we chat with Tressa, we're going to talk about something completely different. And I'll save that. I'm so pleased you're both here, and I'll save that for when we get into Tressa's story. So thank you.
Yeah, so Patrick began to tell me the story about this puppy that you saw behind him, little lady. When you had him in the car, had her in the car, and you were driving, and she got excited, and I guess she jumped out of the car.
Yeah, I took my mom back down to a beautiful park. It was in King of Prussia, and we were driving through this park, and she rolled down the window. That's how smart she was. In one motion, she unlocked the door because I had them both rolled up. I had another Jack Russell that was Daisy, and Daisy's heart was bad at that point. She was 14, and she was given 6 months to live on the meds. I didn't keep her on the meds, and she lived another like about a year and a half. But that's why I got little lady. I can't have a lapse. I've always had 2 dogs, and so we were in the park, and literally like within 5 minutes, she had unlocked and unrolled and jumped out of the window, and I wasn't really moving, so I were limping and got her and did an emergency rush to the vet down there in Philly, and they put her in a cast, and she did some X-rays and said, she'll be fine. They're gonna do surgery, and obviously cut my trip short, and and I had just got her, like I didn't have her a couple weeks, and she's a champion. I got her from a breeder in Syosset, one of the best AKC breeders in the country. Actually, I vetted her, and she was the smallest of 13. I got to pick, and I was looking for speed, so she said she'll be a rocket ship. She's still fast as shit on 3 legs, but point being that when I came back home that night, and I went to my vet then, who was the Derby Animal Hospital, and they said the same thing. They took more X-rays again and reiterated that she'll get the surgery. He sent me to the North Haven Animal Hospital for veterinary medicine, and at that time, she was there to get her rabies vaccine, which is, I think irrelevant in my opinion, but I heal myself naturally, so I'm like, all right, that's it, and it's important to say that my last regular visit, I had words with Dr. Sparrow about wearing a mask any longer, and so I basically said I'm going to take my dogs elsewhere if I have to wear masks anymore, and so.
Because this was long after it was needed. No one was requiring them anymore, correct?
Yeah, this was the end of 22.
Okay.
It was 23. And so, and that was it. Like we had like heated words to the point where, so I said, okay, and so now the next visit is under distress, and a little lady's in there with her leg broken, and they're to get this rabies vaccine, which they said she's here for rabies vaccine. And he knows how I feel about other things, So I got my bill when I got home, and it was for $580, $480 it was, and there was another vaccine on there that I don't approve of, that he knew I didn't approve of, because we had words about such, and it really well, it really infuriated me to the point that I can't really completely share how I felt on this forum or any forum, honestly. So I'll just keep it at that and wink and say how you would probably feel if, I can't have children. My dogs are my kids, that's my life. I would die for them and go to jail for them, and almost did in this regard. But so from there, he ended up apologizing and sending me my money back, and saying that it was in her best interest. I guess I have no ability. He didn't afford me the opportunity to have an opinion, and I thought that was a little, a little wrong. Maybe a lot wrong, just because he knew how I felt. So then I felt it was like a spiteful type thing. And I mean, you can look at me. I'm an activist for other things. I'm a plant medicine activist. Spiting me is not usually the best route to go. So I told him, it's pretty wrong what you did. And I launched a website. It's regulateallvetsnow.com. And I launched for a Bill of Rights. I'm going to look to the left, so I'm going to read it, but I'm advocating for 4 basic rights for all pet owners, regardless of, like you said, from an ant to a freaking giraffe. Everything in between. If it's yours and you're giving it love and feeding it, then you should have these rights. Number 1, all vets must ask all pet owners for permission and receive it in writing to inject anything in your pet. An example of, that vaccine and anything else before injecting. Number 2, all vets or representative of must tell, such as add on a printed invoice, the charge for any and every injection before injecting and get written authorization to do so. Number 3, no vet nor representative of can deny the immediate return of any pet because there is a remaining balance owed. As with any other product in life, it goes to collections. You get your thing and then you pay. And number 4, all vets must tell all pet owners that the most distant possibility of amputation, if the most distant possibility of amputation or death exists, this must be told before they operate in writing, as this would be the only possible time to get a second opinion. Now, it's kind of hard to argue with those unless you're a vet, and you would think that they're all rights that are already afforded to us, but no, none of them are, actually, which is pretty sad. I was going to sue them, but I found out that I paid a ton of money for her, and I paid even thousands more to this vet, $6,500. And, you got to have the money here by, 12 p.m., Mr. Baker. We're not going to operate till next week, like a Chinese fire drill. You know what I mean? And I didn't mean that if that's not politically correct anyway, but, and so I did, I just paid $3,000 for the dog, 3 weeks ago. Of course, I'll be back and, gave him the money. And I said, and I reported it because I don't trust them, honestly. I've had other experiences. I don't have time to get into those, but this is where I was at with my trust of vets at this point. That do I need to get a second opinion? Now, Dr. Sparrow already told me a straightforward thing. The vet in Philly told me the same thing, and they told me she'll be fine. So I went to the pool, and I had a call, and they're like, yeah, something happened, and we had to take her leg, and I was like, I lost my shit. Honestly, I lost my shit. So yeah, I was pretty angry about that. And I told him, the next day, it was Memorial Day. I was going to Newport, take my mom to Newport for the weekend. And it's like every time I take my mom away, some crazy shit happens. But so we picked her up, and they told me, she's going to be in the cage for 3 weeks. She's not going to move. And I'm like, what are you giving her? I'm like, so my dad died of cancer, so I'm familiar, and being a former drug addict, what trazodone is. Me and my dad, I'm 170. My dad was down to 110 when he died, but we're on 50 milligrams of trazodone. And she had little lady on 50 milligrams of trazodone. She had her on gabapentin, anti-psych, whatever that crap is. And this is my opinion. Teach their own. If you love it, rock on. And then the pain reliever one. I told her, miss, you take them. You wouldn't move for 3 weeks either in a cage if you were on all that shit. I didn't move, nor did my father. It's a black label medication. I'm going to give her CBD oil. We'll see what happens. And, 2 days later, she was walking around with 3 legs, which was amazing, which I knew she would, honestly. But, the 3 weeks in the cage thing, looking at her, so.
How sweet she is.
Ah.
So
So anyway, from that point, I asked the vet, like, I'll speak to you, and the vet wouldn't, and found out like they screwed up the surgery and chopped off too much bone, and they had a newer surgeon, and so I said, give me give me $2,000 back, on principle alone. I mean, they charged $1,500 for an amputation, which is what they did. It's like a chicken leg. She's 10 pounds now. I mean, Christ. And they charged me $6,500, man. It's a lot of freaking money, And no, I think they threw $250 at me and said, lucky you're getting this. And I'm like, listen, it's not gonna fucking, excuse my friend, it may not end so well. You get to edit this. But I was straight with him. So I went home, I covered myself in pig blood. I had a big sign that said, "There's no vet here, just a butcher." But their property's on Yale grounds, a big, it's like they've rented. So I got moved down to an area that I was relatively not so effective down where I was. So I found out where the owner lives. Her name is Lita Harley, and in Hamden. And I had a sign in a group. My sign said, "Leanda Harley is a money whore and a butcher." And I know that's extreme, ladies. I know, and you may have sympathy for that position for her on her side, having to be that person, but uh, this is extreme too, man. That's extreme. And I didn't even get a phone call, or she didn't afford me a moment of anything. So sometimes I'm an activist, as I warned them, and social pressure and certain tactics are the way that you get through things. So I got a call from their lawyer. I got a lot of thumbs up, even with the strong language from people. You know what I mean? Not everyone's fond of vets these days, like our doctors for the most part. And we got to talk. One of the owners, there's three of them, and the other two, one of them has a problem giving you, paying. I said, listen, man, I'm not. This is on principle, so you guys can keep it, whatever. I'll be here until I want, though. And then I got hit on Friday afternoon with a restraining order. Had state cops there. They tried scaring me off, and my feet are in boots on the ground type stuff. I mean, I'm like a seal. So I went to Maine, took my mom to Maine that weekend, and they left a restraining order on my door. It was like on Saturday morning, and I didn't get back till Tuesday, and the hearing was Monday. And now they had some restraining order on me saying I couldn't protest, which I could. I know my First Amendment rights. And they arrested me. I got arrested, cuffed, taken off, freaking abused again. And yeah, took it to trial. I told the prosecutor I'm going to bury you myself without a lawyer. And I'm pretty good legally, honestly. And they dismissed it in the middle of the night. He had told me initially, just keep the peace, made your point, I'll drop the charge. So I did keep the peace against my better judgment, honestly. And I went back a month later, whatever it was, and it was cold. And he's like, well, you wanted me to plead to something in a year. I said, you out of your mind, bro? So that's when I said, I'll take you to trial. And then he dropped the charges in the middle of the night. I requested a speedy trial, and they dismissed it. And I get a lot of things dismissed, and I don't have time to sue the incompetent institutions and all the vets that screw up. Like I will say, I found after many a good vet, Trumbull Home Vet Service. Ironically, they're all women, but I'll tell you what, most honest ladies I ever met in my life, man, and they could have took me deep, especially when Daisy was at her end. And I heard the tail end of what you said, Teresa, but I will say with Daisy, it's the truth. So I mean, it's on record too. Like Daisy, she was going, she got to the end, and she had this thing where she losing it. She looked like she had a heart attack. So her eyes were glowing, and then laid down, and Daisy died. And this was at about midnight, and I went up and just prayed, and I called my vet. I'm like, what do I do? Whatever, because I rented a house, you know what I mean? I know about burying her and all this stuff. I was a freaking wreck, man. Little lady was not so old. And in the morning, I called my vet. Daisy came back to life. I got like 4 more months out of Daisy. I don't know what happened, man, or I don't know what process happened to her, but Daisy was dead. I mourned Daisy's loss and passing, and she was there in the morning with that goofy look on her face. And I'll tell you that, I'll take a freaking polygraph on that shit. And my vet will tell you, because I left her the frantic message at 3 o'clock in the morning that my dog died. So crazy, man. And it's so true, dude. I'm so true. I mean, I'm like, wow, man, that was like.
Wow.
So anyway, I got some more little side note with Daisy. I got 3 more months out of her, but her last 2 days was and then like you, she laid down with little lady. I laid down with her, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and at 4, she passed.
Yeah.
And I went and buried her down on the river, on the Housatonic, where I lived in Shelton, Connecticut at the time. And so I go there now and sit on the big ass log that I put on top of her thing there. And it's a really nice spot, it really is. You know, my Jack Russell, before that, his name was Jack. And when I went to Mexico, I had to move to Mexico to get sober. I did a plant medicine. That's how I got my life turned around in 14. But I had two Jacks, Jack and Daisy. Yeah. And Jack got liver failure down there, and he was 14 and a half. And I was in the area of Mexico that there were no vets and no nothing, you know, and he was bleeding out his bum, and he was at the end, but he wouldn't pass, you know. And you know, so I had to put him down myself, you know, and that was
Wow.
choke him out.
So thank you for sharing your story.
That carries a lot of
It does carry a lot. And
stuff that I'd like to hear from him, Michele, from Jack, you know, because I loved him, you know, and I didn't know what else to do. You know, it was really, it was so heavy. Like the options were, I didn't have any, you know, and I couldn't see him in pain. So it's like, what do you do?
right.
You know?
So I wanna backtrack on your story because there's a lot here, and
Yeah.
my heart is like, it's a lot what you just shared, and thank you, because I know how much you love very deeply, and I know how much you care about your animals. And I want to go back to your originals when you started about the dog getting a shot of something that I don't even understand why this was given to animals, to be honest. It was given to humans because we had a major, you know, issue around, you know, people getting sick around the world. So I'm being cryptic because I don't want us to get taken down, but starts with a C. And I'm curious if you have an understanding, Michele, why did you ever hear about animals dying from this, and what the purpose of giving this to a dog in the first place?
Let me say one quick thing. $180 a pop, and I think there's 170 million pets in America. Just one angle.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I had heard that it was being given. I had also heard that there are other ingredients being added to regular vaccinations to get those ingredients into the animals for the same reason they were in people, with the same effects. And I feel that it adds to the not knowing piece. I feel that we're not given the opportunity to ask questions. And I feel that that particular shot is keeping everything in a vibration that is required to stop this kind of discussion happening, right? So and then what happens is, like with people, these animals start to show signs of symptoms that don't relate to anything obvious, and then it just becomes one more statistic of an unknown when it is known. And I think that's the biggest piece with all of this is we need to be part of the process, and we're not. And it's getting worse. During that time that everybody was sick, that whole side of animal care just went really, really awful. And I have to say, there were veterinarians that were actually taking their own lives because they could not handle the stress of many aspects of veterinary care. So this goes across the board with something not being right. And I also feel that a lot of what's being given to the animals now is a scientific experiment. I mean, I've always said that about many aspects of it. It's just another way of doing an experiment and seeing what the outcome is. without any word from anybody saying yes or no, or this is good and this is not good. So I feel that it's about advocating, and I always have, especially because I had a loss from a vaccine, which is how I got into my work. But also I've dealt with so many cases over the years of the side effects, and they go undiagnosed because no one's linking them back. So I feel that this whole thing and everything, Patrick, that you're doing and that you're advocating for, and the Bill of Rights that you're putting out there, is actually relatively long overdue, because we're being disempowered within that realm of what we are told is a really important part of healthcare, and that we're not good owners if we don't take that on as being what we're supposed to do, and yet it's killing our animals.
Yeah, I'd like to say also something that, you know, my primary passion is getting kids off of heroin, or anyone actually, and opiate, fentanyl, and, you know, and saving them through plant medicines. That's the bulk of my time and my mission. But, you know, it's a lot of these issues double, and, you know, they can, you know, the effect of these on our pets, like I said, for some people they are our kids and our closest thing that we'll ever have to them. To implement, or help me implement, you know, I spent thousands and put that website up, maybe it's got a few thousand views. Like, I don't know how to do the change.org, and I'm hoping someone that watches this says, hey, let's do it, and just put that information. It's all on my website. I took all the time to put the whole story and every factual thing on there.
Right.
And that's the way things get done. And that's not asking for a lot. I mean, those 4 things, you know, if you're going to operate, my dog might die, just let me know. I mean, maybe I might want to get a second opinion. And before you stick anything in her, let me know what that's going to be. Maybe I don't want that going in her forever. You know, maybe,
Right.
you know, things like that. And so, yeah, you think that's, you know, it's all right. It's not. They tell you
So-
screw. Have a nice
So
day.
Pat, you actually Michele had checked in on the lady and got some information for you, and I wanted to give an opportunity for her to I sent you the message, and I just, you know, we have permission from you to tell it. So Michele, and anything else you want to comment about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting to connect with her, because her personality shifted. So sometimes the animals aren't quite sure what you're doing. You're some stranger coming in going, hey, have a conversation with me. I have a question for you. And they're like, I don't even know who you are. What are you doing? And does my person know that you're like talking to me? So yes, we did kind of go through that. She's very loyal, and she wasn't, you know, quite sure what she was supposed to say, or should she say anything. So, you know, so there was that sweet process, but the way she shifted throughout the conversation was so beautiful, into like skepticism, into, okay, I'll talk, and all right, I'm going to go really deep now. And then it shifted into this lightness and this joy, this, wow, it's out there, and, you know, so much to share. So it's not very long. Do we have time if I read it, or do you want me to?
Yeah, we can go a little long. I mean, this
Okay.
is, you know, we've got 2 compelling stories here,
I
and I
know.
think people will hang out. We just don't want to go too long, that's all.
Yeah. So here's the message that I got today from little lady. Much has changed inside and outside my body. It is now not as it once was intended. When I was at the vet, there were many animals all talking and not being heard. They didn't know what was happening, and like me, resisted to try and explain that something was wrong. What is misunderstood the most is that we feel and experience what is happening to us and others, yet our voices are not heard. Papa tried very hard to be heard too, and now we want to ensure others are always heard. There are aspects of the treatments I received that reside deep in my body. A piece of me has been lost in this process. 4 legs or 3 is an adaptation we can make, yet perhaps the surgery could have been done differently, as there is permanent damage. And how else do we advocate for change? And at that point, the song All Out of Love by Air Supply was playing on the radio. So if I'm listening to music, I always track what songs are on
Yeah, I like
when I'm talking. So we have now mirrored each other, and so healing for both on a soul and physical level is at the forefront. Between Papa's voice and my physical appearance, much can be changed. The sound of all the animals trying to communicate and not being heard is an aspect of this that now must be in the forefront. And this is where she shifted. The flip side is to show how healing can happen and life moves forward. Otherwise, we get stuck in the past, and that doesn't help anyone. Listen, advocate, act, synchronistic harmony. Throughout this connection, she began as shy and quiet, to asking questions, to sharing, to joy, to lightness, to uplift and inspiration. So she just went through this whole gamut. It was fascinating to chat with her. The biggest piece that I took and I wanted to share from that is I've been in the back end of a veterinary hospital just because I happened to be had a dog and I was able to go back there. And I can't tell you how bombarding it was with all these animals back there, all needing to be heard, all needing to communicate, all needing to ask questions. And of course, every vet hospital needs a communicator in there to share, right? What they need to know. And so when she shared how noisy it was all these animals confused and not understanding why they're there and what's happening. And with everything that happens, there's a vibration. There's an emotional charge from the people that are holding them or working with them. There's a vibration to the medication or the surgery or whatever else is going on that they either want or don't want. And when they resist, they don't get that's communication. And they don't get the chance to resist and be heard. They are made to have whatever's going on. And that's the piece that really was my biggest takeaway from her, was that, and that the two of you are on this incredible journey together. And from what she's saying and her focus, I do believe that change is going to happen. And I do believe that what you have to share is important. And I also believe that there are a lot of people that just need that one person to step forward for them to jump on and support. So I do believe that everything that the two of you are doing together is really, really key to shifting veterinary medicine into a different place. And it needs to, and it has needed to for a long time. So I want to thank you for what you're doing.
It's my pleasure to do so. I mean, it's just, you go through something like this and it's like, it's traumatic. I mean, I'm an inventor. I wear a lot of hats, and I invented. I'm working on a location device for tracking dogs. I've had a dog stolen. My first dog was a white Staffordshire, and she was fixed and she was stolen for breeding, and she was gone for 3 months. You know what I mean? 3 months. Josie. I had a restaurant in Newport, Rhode Island named Jack and Josie's after my two dogs. I had big posters of them in the windows. It was a big restaurant, a very big area. Everyone knew my dogs in the world. They were on Animal Planet, America's Funniest Videos. Anyway, but I got Josie back, was the point. But I drove around with posters of her and her 9 puppies, big 4x6 posters on my car for like every day around the entire state. And I finally got a tip off and sent the A-team men to get her. But it's crazy, some of the, to hear these stories. And it's like, people got to understand, that for some people, they're just, protection and throw on a chain and stick out there like an alarm, but for some people, they're like, well, they're like our children. We would go to great lengths to protect and to save them, So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
So anything else? Thank you so much for your honesty, your integrity, and your passion for what you do. You can see the love that you carry. And and how important this is for you. And Michele, is there anything else that you wanted to tell him, or anything else before we go to Teresa?
I feel that you are surrounded. What I see is you surrounded by many and like spirit animals. You have many animals that are like your team, your backup, your support as you're doing all of this. And so what I would say is, whenever you're advocating, or you want to get something done, or you want somebody to hear you, or you want this to get out somewhere, call on them. Because if anything can make it happen and align you to the people or the places or the things that you need to be aligned to, they're literally right there. Talk about like wanting to be heard. They're right there, and they will support you. You can sit down and have meetings with them and say, this is what I want to achieve. You need to help me put people in my place. I really feel that you can expand out to their support, and I think you'll get a lot more done, because they're going to tap into the animal consciousness, and it's massive.
Yeah.
So call on them. They're sitting right there. They're like, pick me. So
Because that's one of the rules, is your guides can't do anything because you have free will unless you give them permission. So but for everyone to know this, that I once was working with a woman, I was studying psychic development and mediumship, and she's like, man, you come in with a crowd. I said, yeah, they were nosy in real life too. It was my family. So I want to give you the option, Pat, you can stay, or if you have to leave, you can leave, but I want to move on to Teresa and let her tell her story. And what was really cool, and this is our intention, is as people watch this show, you can contact us, and you'll have an opportunity to also be on the show, and you can ask questions about your pet, either past or current one that's passed on. And that's exactly what happened here. So I'm really thrilled to have Teresa here. Am I pronouncing your name right, Teresa?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I had that.
I just want, could I ask one thing?
Sure.
I can go to like 4:20. I have an MRI at 4:45. So,
Okay.
you know, I want to hear your story though. So I just want to let you know, at 4:20, I will quietly depart, but that's why. I say, where the hell did Pat go? He just did a Houdini here.
Well,
Anyway.
thank you for letting us know.
Yeah.
And I have photos of Teresa's dog. And I didn't tell you this, my dog growing up's name was Monty. So when I saw
That's
Monty,
funny.
because that's not a popular dog's name, he was a poodle. So doesn't look like you're Monty at all. So you have Olive, Monty, and Lita.
Yes. So where do you want me to begin?
From the beginning, when you were talking about, so your original question and what you wanted to know, because you've got 3 dogs and I have their photos, which I'll share once you get through your story.
So Lita was a birthday present for my daughter when she was 9 years old. My daughter had for 4 years just begged for a dog, although she had every pet under the sun from hamsters up. Anyway, we were at the pet store one day and I struck up a conversation with a woman who was a dog trainer there, and she was fostering puppies for the Humane Society. And she said, oh, you know, I live near you. Why don't you stop and see these puppies? And so we went to see the puppies. And of course, we fell in love with all the puppies and decided to get one of the puppies for my daughter for her birthday. And so my daughter picked the one she wanted, and that was Lita. And so we got Lita, and she was only 9 weeks old when we got her, approximately, because we weren't exactly sure. But of course, you know, my daughter being 9 years old, the responsibility kind of fell on me, even though my daughter helped and, you know, trained her. I mean, we went through training together. So Lita was the absolute I mean, best dog. She was a canine good citizen. She never, you didn't have to put a collar on her. She just stayed in the yard. She listened. She was just, she got along with, we had 3 cats. She got along with the cats. I mean, she was just the best and traveled everywhere with me. I had a Jeep at the time. And when my daughter was 12, she got into horses. And so we got her a horse. And at the barn where we boarded the horse to save on, boarding fees, we volunteered to muck the stalls and feed the horses. And well, Lita was there every step of the way. I mean, she would, anytime we went to the barn, she just was like my right hand. I mean, she'd just hop in the back of the Jeep and away would go. And she went everywhere with me. And she got Lyme disease when she was 12. And kind of, she went lame for a little while, and she took her, to the vet at one point because she was not doing well. And I took her in and they said she had a mass on her spleen and they couldn't do anything for it. And they said, we need to put her down. And I said, no, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, they just wanted to down and I wasn't prepared for that. And so I said, no. So this was one of the vets in the practice, but my vet stepped in and he said, I said, I need time. I don't want her to be in pain, but I need time, to process this and think about what to do. And so he said, he said, I'll make sure she's not in pain. So he put a fentanyl patch on her side and sent me home. And so she perked up, because I guess she had been in pain and I didn't know it. And so she was okay, but she was dying, and I had to go back and get her another fentanyl patch in, like, it's like 10 or 12 days. And anyway, I got 3 more weeks with her. And it was on Labor Day. It was on a Monday on Labor Day. And I had been sleeping on the couch. She was sleeping on the floor and I was spending, time with her because I knew that she was fading. And it was in the afternoon and she was laying on the floor beside me and she had been labored breathing. And so all of a sudden it just stopped, it got quiet. And so I knew that she had passed. And so it was hard. I mean, but, I was happy that I was there and I was hoping that, she hadn't suffered. And so I couldn't do anything till the next day anyway, because it was Labor Day and nothing was open. And so she just laid there and I left her there that night and the cats came and everybody, said the goodbyes and the next day I called, the next morning I called my vet and he said, bring her up. And before, everybody gets there, he said, you bring her up. And so I took her up and I had her cremated. And so she's, on my mantle with a couple other cats that I had. But so for a year, I was just, missing her terribly. And then because the one morning we woke up and my husband said, we need to go to the Humane Society today. I was like, oh, okay. So we went to the Humane Society and, told them we were looking to adopt a dog. And so took us in the back, and there were a lot of dogs, and they were all in cages. And you go down the row of cages, and about 2 cages in, there was this black and white dog, and he wasn't laying on his little mat. He was laying on the concrete floor right near the front of the cage, and he had a cone on his head because they had just neutered him. And he just watched me. He never said anything. And as I was walking down the aisle, all the dogs were barking, and some of them were jumping, and some of them were growling. And I mean, they were just, crazy. So I walked down and I stopped at the cages, and I, kind of looked at each one and turned around and came back. And when I got back to his, he was still laying there watching me, not saying anything, just laying there watching me. And so I knelt down in front of his cage, and when I knelt down and I looked at him and he looked at me, like our eyes were connected, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is him, this is the dog. And so, long story short, they said that he had come in, he had been transferred from a kill shelter in Ohio. The animal control had picked him up with another dog that they said was most likely a litter mate. And they had her in a different part. We didn't even see her. They had her in a different part because they had spayed her. And so she was, being taken care of. But they wanted to adopt them together because they came in together, and they didn't want to split them up. And so if we wanted him, they wanted us to take her also. And so we talked about it and said, okay, yes, we will take them both. And so that's what we did. And I just, when I brought them, they were there for like 2 weeks before we could actually bring them home. When we brought them home, and the first night that they were here, and the first night, Monty walked in the door and went upstairs, and I had all Lita's things. I had saved her food bowls and water bowls and pillows and everything else. He walked in like he was the boss, like he had just been on a vacation, and he knew right where everything was. And my one cat, Bandit, was very, very good friends with Lita. They were pals. And he walked right up to Bandit, and Bandit, and it was like they just booped noses, and it was like, hey, where have you been? Haven't seen you for a while. So I don't know. I was curious because I didn't know if Lita sent me. She sent word that we had to be at the Humane Society because there was somebody waiting there for us, or whether that was Lita coming back for a while to let me know that, she was okay. I didn't know, but I mean, she was the best. And Monty and Olive are, they're best pals. I mean, they are, litter mates, and they're really good. They're, I mean, I love dogs, all dogs, but they are really, really good. And so I was just curious. I wanted to see if Michele would know if, Lita had something to do with this or not, or if I'm just creating this all in my head.
So no, thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful story. And Michele, I know you checked in as well. Did you have a reading for her?
Yeah, I do. So just so that people know right now how this is working is that I receive a picture, and that's how I communicate. So before we do the show, I will sit and get a reading, which I think actually is quite nice, because this way I'm not being swayed by anything that you're telling me. I knew the core of this story, but I don't get swayed by anything that you're telling me because I'm doing this completely separately. So I just wanted people to know that's Maui.
Maui,
Maui.
beautiful.
Yeah. But I did, and it was really a beautiful connection and a beautiful reading. And I will send this to you, Tressa, so you have it. And Patrick, I'll send you yours too. So this was really interesting. So Lita came in first, and then I reconnected again this afternoon, and Monty and Olive had something to share also. So yeah, so this is really beautiful. All right. So Lita, when Lita was alive, so she started there. Lita was with you to awaken a calling from within. She came to support a huge transformation and remained by your side as you found your way. In a past life, you were in a tribe and the 5 of you were together. You and your husband were the same, husband and wife, and Lita was your guard dog. Here's the funny part. Olive and Monty were cows on your farm. Okay. So the 5 of you were together, right? There was a closeness and care in how you all interacted. So that was the past life that she shared, that you had together, which is why you all feel very connected to each other. When Lita left, transitioned, it was time for the other 2 to become part of your tribe again. Lita is very much around in spirit and is actively part of the tribe. The guidance to go to the Humane Society came from Monty with the support of Lita to get the connection made. You are a tight group with Lita at the helm. What you saw and felt at the shelter was a remembering and a knowing of who each of you were. Lita's departure helped the other 2 find their way back to you. Lita chose to remain in spirit and become your guide. You will meet again in another lifetime. And then I don't remember this piece of the message and what it meant. Sustainability, advocacy, and the welfare of others. We could explore that, at some other point, but that was how that piece ended. So basically you've all been together before. And just the image of the cows was quite lovely. And then I checked in with Monty and Olive because I felt that it was fair for them to have a voice too in this whole process. So they bring with them other spirit connections. So it may feel as if your home has more than 2 dogs in it. So there's a lot of animal activity in your house that came with them. So if your house feels full at times, that's why, right? There's just a lot going on, but it's all good. These spirits are high vibrational and offer loving support. They came in to help Monty and Olive and have now decided to be around to help expand the energy and transformations that you and your husband are experiencing. If you meditate together, you will feel these energies. It is very beautiful. And then I saw an image of a lion whose energy is also supporting this powerful tribe of beings from all dimensions. And the colors that I saw are these bright, vibrant purple and pink colors. It's very magical. The energy is like super, super magical. And then the last thing that Monty and Olive had said, which I know I'm getting all emotional over this one. You had to be at the shelter when you felt the pull because someone else was also interested and the dogs wanted to make sure the connection with you first. It had to be you.
That's so funny you say that because when we said we wanted to fill out the application to adopt them, they said, well, there is someone else who wants them also. And so we filled out the application immediately and put it in. And then they called us and said we could have them. So
They
that's
knew.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah, they knew it was like the pull was like, you have to get here. You have to get here.
Get us out. That's
Wow.
cool.
Because
I love that
impacted you.
So I
confirmation.
got to
Yeah.
roll. I just
Yeah.
want to say thank you all.
Thank you,
so
Patrick.
much.
Thank you so much,
Luck,
Michelle.
Patrick.
We'll be in
I
touch.
appreciate it.
Story.
Yeah, you too, Teresa. Where do you live, Teresa?
I live in Cranberry Township in Pennsylvania.
Oh, Pennsylvania, right. I'm in Connecticut. Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
And
Thank
you're
you
in
so
England?
much.
Sounds like you're
Yeah.
in England?
Yeah.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a great day. Peace. God
All right,
bless.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Actually, I'd have to figure out how to leave. All right, here we go.
Oh, he's
Love
funny.
that.
So,
I love the you know what is so special about communication work is you really have to come into it very neutral. No expectations, no right, am I right, am I wrong? You have to like let all of that go. But it's so lovely to get the validation sometimes when you write something down and you're going, oh my God, oh my God. So thank you for validating that somebody else was around because they knew. They literally hauled you in
I
to be able
love
to fill
that.
out that form. Yeah.
I love
Yeah, I
that.
mean, they must have come to my husband when he was sleeping because like that was so out of character for him to just get up in the morning and say, you know, let's go to the Humane Society today. Okay.
Oh. This
It's
has been an incredible show between both of you, very emotional, two completely different stories, but I'm so grateful that you contacted us and that we were able to get this message to you. Is there anything else that we didn't get to that you had a question, or Michelle, is there anything that we didn't cover?
no, I mean for me it feels very complete. How about you,
Okay.
Tressa?
All right,
Does thank
so
you.
I'm gonna
I have
share 1 second.
been wondering about that for years.
Oh,
Let's
we're going to share
see.
the pictures of your dog so
So
that
there is Lita. Oh my God, it looks so much like my dog. I can't take it. And
That
this
was
is
her chair.
Olive.
That was her chair. And there's Olive.
And my Missy. And here they are together. Monty and Olive
And Olive.
there.
love
And
it.
then I know I have, this is a great picture. There's Monty.
Yeah.
What a beautiful dog.
He's very different looking. Just his markings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's nice to be able to have people see. I love this when Lisa puts the pictures up because it just gives people that visual. Now you can connect the actual physical animal with the story that comes behind it. So yeah, so thank you, Lisa, for sharing.
and I'll edit them in at the end if you want. You can do that, the photos. And it's thank you so much. And again, the links to Pat's website, if anyone wants to help him in any way, if you're interested in advocating, he's got his own incredible story that we don't have time to get into, but yeah, he's recently clean and sober and quite the advocate, and he's an open book. So, and Teresa, thank you so much for your story and calling in. And if any of you again have any story or any questions, or if you don't want to be on the podcast, you could just send a photo in with the dog's name, and we're happy to talk about them as well. So if you're camera shy, don't worry, we'll still help you out. And thank you again, and we'll be on next week. So take care.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Michelle, I appreciate it. And thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.